So today we are hosting this Chaos Show session. We call it ARRI radio modules, optimizing the signal strength. It should really provide you some background about our technologies, the new radio adapter, the radio modules, and we really want to keep this an open session so everybody can ask questions, also challenge us. You can do bug fixing, whatever things you have in mind. Really looking forward to this session. We've timed it for 1 hour, but if needed, and if my voice allows it, we can also do a little longer. Let's just see how it goes. Who are we? So do a short introduction. So myself, I'm Tobias. I'm product manager at ARRI for the area electronic control systems. So this is the Hi5, the motors, the radio interface adapter, so basically all the first AC equipment. I just joined ARRI in February this year, and before I was working in the automotive industry, and before that I actually have a background in microelectronics. So I did a PhD on MEMS microphones, co-developed parts of the microphones here. So this is my real background. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to the show. Okay, I think I lost connection, sorry.
Yeah, you're back again.
Today with me is my colleague, Leon.
Hello.
So Leonhard, he's a senior engineer, hardware engineer here at ARRI in Vienna. He has a master degree in electronics, and he's actually kind of a dinosaur. So you're with ARRI, I think, in more than 20 years. So you joined in 2001, so a little longer than I did. And basically, he was part of the development of each and every radio module that ECS ever launched. So he's really the expert on these radio modules. I'm very glad that you are with us here today, Leonhard. Thanks for joining. Also from ARRI, we have Chase Hagan. So Chase, hi, good to have you on the board. So Chase is a technical sales representative. He's based in Western US, and he's basically handling that region for ARRI Inc. So ARRI Inc. is ARRI US and Canada. So he joined 2016, so a little more longer than 6 years ago, in the Burbank office. And he has a background BFA in film. And for me, Chase is like whenever I have a question, someone needs something from the West Coast US, Jason is always the one I call. He has a very good background. He knows a lot of people. Glad that you're with us here today. Thanks, Jason. And also today we brought to the stage two very friendly ACs with whom we are working a lot. So we have with us Karl Keil. So Karl Keil is from Germany, located in Berlin. So Karl Keil is also quite a dinosaur in the industry, at least in Germany and Austria, in these regions. So if I understood, you're in the industry since 2000, and you started as a film loader, and now you worked all your way up to a first AC. And what I really like is you call it your dogma. You always say, like, keep it simple. And I think this is a very important aspect. So maybe we can also discuss this a little bit later in more detail. You're working on very interesting projects. Just recently, I understood that you're working for Babylon Berlin is a big German production. You worked on Homeland, Queen's Gambit, so really high-end productions. And you're also a field tester, so one of the first people ever touched the Hi5. And so many improvements and features that resulted from the discussions with you are implemented in our products. Thanks for being with us today, Karl. And last but not least, we have Amber B. Kapoor. Amber, your picture is frozen, but I hope you can still hear and see us. Perfect. So Amber is based in LA. He's a focus puller and camera technician. He's very fortunate, so he has been mentored by a lot of big guys like Bill Bennett, AC Team, Truma, and many, many more. And if I understood correctly, you worked for a lot of big-end commercials, even award-winning commercials. You're focused on TV shows, and just recently you're doing a lot of multicam projects, which I think is very interesting for radio communication. Like you did the Lady Gaga show, Weekend, and even the upcoming Sir Elton John farewell concert. You're kind of organizing and technically responsible as AC for these shows, which I think is the perfect background for today. And as a funny side fact, you told me today that you actually wanted to become an astronaut, which I really like. But you also told me that you got rejected by the Mars Habitat program. It's a pity, but at least we're having you with us here today. So I'm really glad that you got rejected and you still are kind of our expert and tester for Hi5 RIA radio modules in the LA region. Glad that you are here with us today. So as a start, I would share my screen and do a small presentation and give you some background. Also feel free to add comments. Maybe we also can start discussions on a few slides already. Otherwise, at the end of the presentation, we would really open the stage, maybe start with some discussions with Carl and Amber and Chase and also Leonhard. And then really everybody can join, and yeah, just make sure on the upper part of the screen you have this reaction button where you can raise your hand. Whenever you want to mention something, please raise your hand, and then Saskia or someone else will call you out. Good. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect. So, as already mentioned, these are the 5 people that are also in the invitation. This is just a very brief background, what we mean by Hi5 ecosystem. So the Hi5 is our last generation focus puller equipment, AC hand unit. I think all of you that are in this round know the Hi5. We just recently launched the radio interface adapter. It's a very important system of the Hi5 ecosystem because it's the hub for all our radio modules on camera side, but it also has additional features, which I will explain you in a couple of seconds. We have our radio modules, 3 versions. AMIP and 2.4 GHz frequency hop already launched. The RF900 will come very soon when we give you more details about these radio modules and their performance also. But we also have focus rings, we have hand straps, neck straps, we have licenses and so on. So this, all the things that works with the radio modules in Hi5, we call our Hi5 ecosystem. And here I want to just give you a brief introduction about the radio interface adapter. It's a product that we launched in September. It was introduced basically on our webpage already over a year ago, but it has a lot of functionality. And due to COVID and some reasons, it took us a while before we had all the parts together and software stable to really be able to launch it. But now it's out and performing really well. It's a nice feature. You can mount all the 3 radio modules into this adapter. These are the same radio modules that also fit onto the Hi5. It has several features. So it's a motor controller. You can mount it on camera, but you can also mount it off camera. You can extend the radio performance of SXU1, or you can enable an OCU1 to be a wireless operator control unit that can be mounted as a host on camera, but also off camera. It's compatible like all our motor controllers with ARRI cameras, but also and especially with third-party cameras, so Sony Venice, Red Komodo, but also other cameras. Basically all cameras that feature an RS port or LANC port. You can do rec, start, stop, and tally. It also has a serial port. So if you know our L-Cube device, an L-Cube or the newest generation of L-Cube is basically implemented already into the RIA 1. So you can connect all the distance measuring devices like a Focus Plug CNRT or our UDM directly into the RIA 1. And it supports all the lens tables. So if you have an LDS lens or smart lens, it transmits all the signals. You can use your existing LDA tables with the existing lenses that you maybe already learned. This is one of the parts. And I don't need to talk about that. It's fulfilling, of course, our high quality standards for production. With the RIA 1, and I have one with me, if you can see my camera. So this is actually when you order on RIA 1, and I hope you can you actually see my video still?
Yeah, we can see.
If you order RIA 1, you get this nice package. And because the RIA 1 is quite a complex device, we added a configuration guide to the package. This configuration guide, if you scan this QR code or if you just go on the web page, it gives you all the information. We created sample setups for all kind of cameras, the new Alexa 35, Mini LFs, also Alexa Plus cameras, third-party cameras with different combination of equipment, operator control units, focus back device. So all the information you need to make your setup, you can find here on this QR code. And because we really think it's important that you get this information all the time, we also printed the QR code on the device itself. So we have a sticker here that gives you a configuration guide. You can always, when you're in set, whenever you have a question, a sample or the setup is not working, just scan this QR code and you get all the information that you need. To get started, our colleague, Sean Dooley, he made a brilliant tech talk. Please also make sure to watch it on YouTube. It gives you a lot of information. We're producing additional tech talks, also for third-party equipment, licenses, focus park. Much more is coming, but this tech talk is really worth seeing. So some sample setups, and I think I will go with you here really live in the meeting. So I will activate actually my other camera. I hope it is working. So the rear one, it can be mounted on camera as a host or can be mounted off camera as a client. And by that also the way the radio modules are working, it's really important to understand. So we have a sticker, and this is important. The rear one, it has 4 main connectors, 2 LBus connectors, a CAMD connector, and a serial connector. It's just important that there are some guidelines that you need to be aware of when using the rear one. It's like always connect cameras via the CAM port, and always connect motors or peripheral equipment via the LBus port. And basically most of the distance measuring devices are connected to the serial port. So if I go to our camera, so we have built up a small Mini LF camera, small setup. I hope you can see it. So for example, here on the Mini LF, we have the rear. We have our motors daisy chained through one of the LBus ports. We have our CAM port connected to the EXT port of the camera, basically for camera control functionality. And in addition, we used a second LBus cable from the second LBus port to our mount. This is due to some specific reasons, which I explain to you a little later. This cable is not needed all the time, but for some setups, you need also this additional cable. And we have an UDM on our camera, and UDM is just connected to the serial port. So it's pretty straightforward connection. And today on the camera on the rear one, we're having our RF 2.4 GHz frequency hopper, the RF 2100 radio module. And in this configuration, we actually use the RF 2400 in parallel to the integrated radio, which is quite an interesting setup. We have our Hi5 connected. So we have a Hi5 connected with the white radio to the camera. And we have an OCO1 on a monitor stand connected with a rear one in client mode. And we can control the iris of the camera just with our OCO1 here next to the monitor. So this just wanted to give you some example, and all this information you can find also on this configuration guide. So we have host settings where you can really very simply connect the rear one to the camera as a motor controller. There are client setups like I showed with the OCO1 on the monitor, where you can actually have a wireless OCO1 or master grip, or even take an WCO4 or an S6U1 and attach a rear one in a client, and then have the performance of the new radio modules with an S6U1 for longer distance shots. If all these kind of setups are really possible. And this setup is actually what we have built up today. So we have a Mini LF, and this configuration is just as I've shown it to you a few seconds ago. So it's a really versatile device. You You can use it with all different radio modules. Here you can also use the 900 megahertz radios when they are launched or released. It's really versatile. It gives you a lot of opportunities. It's small, it's lightweight, but it must fit, of course, the place on the camera. It's really a great extension if you're not having the chance to use the integrated AMIP radio of an Alexa camera. Also with the Rio One, we launched our licenses. We have a Red camera control license, a Sony camera control license, and also a FocusBug license. All these licenses work with the Rio One. And the Sony and Red camera control license, it also already works with the CFOS Mini RF. We are preparing an update for the Mini RF and also for the LCAP One, that it also supports the high-speed protocol from FocusBug. I can't give you the exact timing yet, but we're working on it, and I expect early in 2023. We can also have an update of an LQ1 and a CFOS Mini RF. That you can also use the FocusBug license with these devices. But now let's really focus on the radio modules. So it's ARRI. We always had the RF AMIP radio module. It's in all kind of products existing at ARRI at the moment at ACS. And here in this RF AMIP radio module, we use the latest generation, and Leonhard will give you a little bit more details about these generations in a few minutes. But this is really the standard radio module that's implemented in all our cameras and equipment. And now it's also available as this module. We have already launched, you can order it at the 2.4 GHz frequency hopper. It works on the same frequency range, but it uses a different spread spectrum technology. And what we mean by spread spectrum, this is also something that Leo will explain to you in a couple of minutes. And very soon, and Amber, who's with us today, is actually testing this already. Very soon, we will also be able having the RF 900. So it's a new radio module with a different frequency range or region. It works in the 900 megahertz ESM band. The problem is it's only allowed this 900 megahertz band to be used in US and Canada. All other parts of the world basically have this restricted to mobile communication. But for us in Canada, this is really a very nice long range, high performance radio module that we will launch very, very soon. And maybe Leonhard, let's discuss a little bit more about the radio modules. I mean, we have the different versions of it. We have different pros and cons. So maybe you could give us more details about why we've chosen these radio modules. What are the pros and cons? Maybe also, I think we prepared a few slides about frequency hopping versus discrete spectrum, pros and cons about the performance of these modules. So maybe you can introduce it a little bit.
Yes. Hello together. This chart shows the radio modules that we are currently want to sell and have in the pipeline. The RF AMIP is the well-known so-called white radio that's already fit in the cameras and the hand units for at least 10 years, I would say, this range. It's a direct sequence system in the 2.4 gigahertz ISM band that we have chosen, I think, more than 20 years ago, as it's the license-free, worldwide usable band that's the so-called industrial scientific medical band it's free to use nearly to the whole world. And so also the RF AMIP was designed to use this frequency range. It's a direct sequence system that has dedicated channels. We have nowadays 14 fixed channels. A user that knows the white radio for a longer time knows that it's only 8 channels available a few years ago. We have, as we have seen, that 8 channels are too small and too small figure of channels. We have changed to 14 fixed channels. That the system that it's behind this, it's a Zigbee-based IEEE 802.15.4 Zigbee system that allows this 14 fixed channels that we use. In addition, we have then the RF 2400 already on the market. It's a frequency hopping system, also situated in the 2.4 gigahertz ISM band, and it's a very robust point-to-point connection in the presence of disturbance that you may have on the set. And so we decided to use frequency hopper again, as already over 10 years ago in the yellow radio, maybe someone knows it. This frequency hopping scheme has the plus that it will overcome more direct sequence disturber and also cope with disturbance nearby. So it's a good decision if you have troubles and not knowing which radios are working on your set. So this radio could be a good solution. The next step in our range of radios is the 900 megahertz system. Tobias already mentioned. It's in the ISM band, only usable in 2 countries in the moment, US and Canada. In other countries, it's an cell phone band, so not usable. And it works also in the frequency hopping scheme, and is a point-to-multipoint system with 3 hand units up to that you can use, like the EMIB radio with 3 hand units. To see that, to explain why 100 channels are possible is technical stuff, because we have the hopping scheme that's lays behind these channels defined over a channel number. So the radios on one channel you have switched on, you can then speak with all the partners in this channel, and you have 100 possible hopping schemes that give you really a lot of range to use more than one radio on a set.
So, if I understood correctly, the RF EMIB is really our standard radio module.
That is the no-brainer that we have already for over 10 years in the market. Is a Vienna-built radio that we have developed by ourselves. We make it, we test it, and we build it in our devices for over 10 years. Is the number one radio, I would say, also in the presence in the market, and used very often. And in addition, we have this new stuff now.
Yeah. So the 2.4 RF 2400, the frequency hopper. And I think maybe we can also get some feedback here from some guys. But my experience with this module is that really it's due to the frequency hopping, it's super stable against interference. So I've been at exhibitions where you have hundreds of cameras mounted, and most of them use direct sequence spread spectrum. You have the Wi-Fi modules with direct sequence spread spectrum. And I tried the white radio, and it was really hard to find a free channel that I could use. And then I used the orange radio module, and instantly I could walk the whole hall, exhibition hall, without any issue. So my takeaway was really, and this is also the thing that I would like to give to you as users, if you're working on a long range set with difficult environment, and you really need a super stable connection, or whenever you are just on AC, you don't need point to multi-point connection. Point to point is enough for you. The orange radio, the 2.4 gigahertz frequency hopper, is really an amazing opportunity and a really nice device that you can choose. And when we're done in the US region, if you have the chance to go to the 900 megahertz, you get even more range. You can have point to multi-point. It's really an extremely powerful radio module if you are allowed to use it in your region. This is my takeaway of these radio modules. What I also think is interesting for our users is a small explanation. I mean, we always discuss direct sequence, spread spectrum, frequency hopping spread spectrum. I think for us as technicians or as engineers, it's quite obvious. Maybe you can just give a very brief introduction to the guys, what actually means frequency hopping. So that really the people understand what's going on, because I think it's important, because some sets require that you stay on certain frequencies. Like if you're in a football stadium, very often you're not allowed to hop around in the radio channels. You really go to a certain channel. So I think it's really important that you understand the differences between frequency hopping and direct sequence.
Maybe one sentence to the why spreading is necessary. This is mandatory to fulfill the regulations, and one way is to hop around to smear into the bandwidth of that available, or you spread in between the channel. But both is allowed, and both systems we use nowadays. And the frequency hopping system shows on this picture that in a pseudo-random way, the channel is changed in a very fast manner and gives the feeling that the bandwidth is used only in a short time on a certain frequency. And so the disturbance that these radios produce to other radios is only very short. And this hopping around gives also the opportunity, if you have disturbance on a certain channel range, this radio will leave this region a moment later. And so the statistical chance that the disturbance will be on the whole time is reduced, of course. And it shows here we have a measurement also together with this schematic picture that in fact it looks really like this measurement shows you have in the spectrum measured a lot of peaks of the changing channels during a certain period that's also regulated. And so we have this filling up of the spectrum, but also this is an picture that shows how it will work in real life.
So you have the whole 2.4 gigahertz ESM band from 2.4 gigahertz to 3.5 gigahertz. And this is divided in multiple small sub-channels. And with the frequency hopping, basically defined by hopping scheme, the radio module jumps around and always sends a few bits on this frequency and then hops to the next. Usually listens if he can send a message, sends and then always hops around. So it uses the whole 2.4 gigahertz band. It not uses a frequency. It really hops around all the time.
It's really the channel that you switch on is only a hopping scheme. It's not a physical channel.
Yeah, I think this is the big difference between the FHSS and DSSS.
Yes, that's the way the RF EMIB or all the white stuff radio that we have used is a spreading that reduces the amplitude of power, but makes a little bit more spectral use in the spectrum here. This is also defined on the regulation that we have to fulfill. And when you look at the real spectrum, you see that it's only one peak that's running over the whole time. And so if there is a disturbance exactly on this position, you will get in trouble, and this will cope the frequency hopping system because it will change automatically. So the other way we could say, if you change the channel, you are the frequency hopper then in this system.
Yeah. But the DSSS really, you select a certain channel.
Yes, it's dedicated and static. So you have to be sure which disturbance is in the spectrum and you change the channel accordingly.
Yeah, and I think all of you know, but it's just to remember. So this radio module, the RF EMIB, is really our standard radio module. It's implemented in all the existing devices. You can make a network with an S61, with an Hi-Fi, with the EMIB radio module together with an Alexa 35 camera. Just for you to remember, this is all different generations, but all on the same principle and all compatible with each other. And this is something that I really got curious about when Leonard showed this to me. So this slide, it shows the different generations of radio modules. And if I understood correctly, like very long time ago in the year 2000, this was more or less the first radio module we had.
Yes, we started with this Wi-Fi based module. It's an OEM radio, and was a very nice radio, but it was end of life in a very early stadium of our product. Maybe a few customers really get hand on it, and we have to find a solution to be deliverable. And so we changed, and you see the form factor of the system Aerocom looks like the old Aeronet system. So it's a drop-in solution, and this was then it's a frequency hopper and we used it nearly 8 years, as far as I remember. And after already also this radio was end of life, we decided to switch over to a direct sequence system based on the Zigbee standard, and this is the so-called white radio. Yeah. And you see here the generations that we built in 10 years, and the IEEE standard was chosen because it's a future-proof concept that we can also look in the future for new radios. Yeah. If new chipsets will come up. And you see this radios in the last generation. It's the EMIB 400. We can count from 100, 200, 300, 400, and the 400 is the last generation that's built in the RF EMIB, also in the cameras and the newest cameras. And so this is the new standard Zigbee radio, white radio that we use as our main product for the no-brainer system that we
really make sure that we have still a chance to update these modules. We're working on new generation, we're working on improvements, even on the EMIB, and always keep backwards compatible.
Yes,
I think this is a really important
thing. And this is the first radio that we have over 10 years in full compatible backwards. Yeah. And so I think it was a good decision to go in this direction, to have a future-proof radio for the normal operation that we see on the set. Yeah. And one interesting picture is that above the EMIB 400 is the newest style radio that we use for the frequency hopping modules. It's an OEM radio from Canada that we found out that's very performant and works really great. And so this stuff is mounted in the RF 2400 and RF 900.
Yeah. So
we
need to speed up a little bit. Okay.
Yep, and we already have a question from Ronnie. Yeah. He would like to know, is the transmission gain in the RF power fixed or variable?
The Zigbee radios or the white radios have fixed power according to the region settings. Only the micro hubs, or the radios that we use in the frequency hopping systems, I have a power control by its own. So it's a controlled radio. The other one are fixed.
We, according to all the standards in the regions, you don't have the flexibility to set your gain or your power to the module in the Hi5 system. So we basically apply the maximum power that is allowed for your regions.
Yes.
But there is not the opportunity that you can add more power or reduce the power at the moment. So this is, we fulfill the standards, and this standard is set by the region that you are in. I think we very shortly go through this slide, because on this slide, I think what we really want to show it, and just for you to be aware again, in the old radio modules, we had the channels 1 to 7, And just it's important for us that you understand that, for example, channel 8 and 9 is in between channel 1 and 2. So we wanted to keep the frequencies from the old channels because some people are used to it and they always use channel 5, for example, in this stadium. That's why it's important, because it's always a good thing if you want to have a good connection and you have multiple handsets on set, that you don't choose channel 1, 0, and 8 for 3 hand units, but maybe choose channel 0, 3, and 6. So the further you are apart, the less interferences you have, because all these channels, they have a broad spectrum and they also spread a little bit into the adjacent spectrum. So you have adjacent interference also a little bit. That's why it's always important that you keep a distance. So please just memorize. And this can also be found online on our ARRI webpage, that the channel numbering is not in an order regarding to the frequencies. So this is just an important information. And whenever you have the chance on set, then the more background information, the better. For example, here we're showing that if you have a Wi-Fi, yeah.
And there are switch channels that are looking in between the spaces between the channels. But it's always a good thing to know what's happening on a set. And if you know that the radios that are running, you can control which radios are used on the set, do it, because it helps a lot to avoid the disturbance and channel overlapping. And if there's a chance to get, at least with devices like this RF Explorer, to get a feeling what's on the ISM band, you have a better performance than overall radios. And if there is a chance to reduce the power in the vicinity of other radios, it's a good doing to use the least power settings, not the most power settings, because it's like a crowded, in all crowded situation, to keep the silence is better as to go up with the power, because you have more disturbance then. Yeah. And this should show this a little bit, that there is always a possible disturbance from Wi-Fi to our stuff for frequency hopping, also for the direct sequence systems. And the best way is to manage what's on in this ISM bands and reduce the possible disturbance then. And so it would be a good doing.
Yeah. So last but not least, I just want to give you a few pictures. For example, we did some range tests, and I think range is a thing that we can discuss now quite often or directly with you as users. Just to give you some ideas, I've been in New York after the Cinegear show, and we used on the 7th Avenue in New York with my colleague Michael Best, who you can see on the picture here. We had a Mini LF with us and a rear mounted on the camera, and I was walking with the Hi-5 towards Times Square. And what you can see here is more or less a comparison of the range of the radio modules. This is the position of the camera. And even the RF EMIB has already quite a good performance. So you have a lot of interference here, hundreds of people on the streets, broadcast on the antennas, on the roofs, so you know New York City. And even in this environment with the RF EMIB, we had a range of approximately 160 meters or 500 feet. So two blocks, which is really, and with this range, we still had a good connection. So we had not stuttering motors. It was really performing well. And then we changed to the RF 2400. You immediately realize that it can go further. With the frequency hopping, the channel selection was easy. So I could walk another block. It was about 900 feet, so 270 meters was the range on average. So we did several tests with the 2.4 gigahertz frequency hopper. And then we switched to the 900 megahertz, which has a longer wavelength, less interference in New York, in US, because not so many people are using 900 megahertz there. And immediately we got to a range of 2,000 feet, so 600 meters. You can really see that this is really already regarding range, to my understanding, more than sufficient for all the environments. But this is really something I want to discuss also with you users. So, for example, I don't know if you want, I would stop the presentation now. I would really like to go into a discussion session. And for me, it's really interesting. So I don't know, Carl, for example, what do you think, based on your experience, how important is range to you as a user?
So range is not so important on set because I need a video image on my monitor. So I'm limited in the range of a Teradek system because without a video on my monitor, I cannot work the focus, you know. So I work only on a monitor.
Yeah.
And so super wide range is not so important. It's more important to have a stable connection, bulletproof connection. And there I had very good experience with the 2400 Orange radio.
Yeah. So you told me that you so I mean, it was one of the best experiences I had since I met Ari. Usually you always get called or get called by people who have complaints, and you were the first guy who ever called me and saying that something worked perfectly. And
yeah, we were 7 days in a row on a racetrack for a feature movie, working with a Russian arm and Flighthead Mini 4, 7 days in a row. And yeah, we never lost a signal to the camera. So I was hardwired with the image, with the video, and I never lost connection. Never. So the camera was everywhere, in front of, behind, side. Yeah, and in the critical situations, you know, when you really need to have full control and be there with the focus and everything on a racing track. So we never missed a shot. And even the operator of the Flighthead and was asking me, oh, do we have something new on the camera? I mean, usually we have some problems. We had problems in the past with losing connection to the camera. The camera wouldn't start, or there was no control to the focus motor in a critical situation. There was not a single moment in 7 days in a row. So this was the first big beta test for the RIA 1, and yeah, actually since then I'm always on the 2400 module as a standard. I mean, the second advantage is the high-speed protocol for the Cine RT. It's the focus tracking is still in beta, but actually I'm testing this already and it's working quite good. I mean, when you have simple setups, you know, one person just track in. You have not a T-stop of 1.5. You have a decent T-stop 4, 256, or even an 8. The motors react much faster, and if you have simple situations where you can use ultrasonic has still its weaknesses and stuff like that. And you know how to change the settings on the RT to pimp it a little bit with the resolution and all this stuff. Then you can make it work actually with the focus tracking. I just did it today. We're shooting on anamorph on Hawk lenses, and we had no rehearsal, no time, nothing, and a track in on a Steadicam from 15 to 4 feet, and on a 65, and yeah, So actually, I used it on the last
I'm
6
glad
feet.
to hear.
Yeah. We got the shot. Yeah.
I'm just so
Tobias?
curious because I see Amber walking around all the time, and I'm so curious what he's doing, and I'm pretty sure that range, like for Amber, more is always better. That's what I know. So Amber, what are you doing?
Stay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. So let me go try and find a quieter environment because I'm actually setting up right now at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I do agree with Carl for some things. Mostly range is really not the important thing. It's having a stable connection. Except that some of the jobs that I'm doing, range actually does matter because where the focus puller in my situation gets set up oftentimes depends on where the line out is coming from the truck. And that can be at the other end of the stadium. It could be, a pretty good distance, 300, 400, 500 yards away from where the camera itself is. So in my case, range does turn into an issue sometimes. Most setups, I would say 65, 75% of the setups, the focus puller can really be near the camera. But then also in locations like Los Angeles, when you're shooting downtown, there is an extremely high RF environment. Every single building, every single Wi-Fi network, there's TV station antennas, there's radio antennas. Those networks are so dense with RF environment that it's very hard to find a locked position where you can actually find a good signal. Sorry, I'm just going to try and get out of this 1-2 checks sound system. But it is so. In my case, it's a combination of both. It's having a reliable signal, which is always the primary goal, and then also being able to find a distance that sometimes is not conducive because the focus station or the focus monitor, because just the way the logistics are, we can't have somebody in the aisle, we can't have somebody near a celebrity, or we can't have someone in the operating theater when we're shooting a medical test, things like that. So now, for example, I've walked out of that theater, and this might be where a focus station would be set up. And I haven't looked at my handset, but let's have a look. I have 4 bars, and I'm on the 900 radio, so that's pretty good. I mean, so and I know if I keep walking.
Yeah. So Amber is testing the 900 megahertz fast in US. That he has an upfront model. It's pretty cool.
Right. So which if I look at.
That's a lunch every 1 hour. Thank you.
Okay, so now they're calling lunch, which is good, which I can show you guys something really quick. So somewhere, actually, let me do it this way. That way you guys will get a real idea. On your right, my camera is set up over here on this pedestal, which is with the 900 radio up there, and this is where we are from the stage. And if at this point I start walking, I'm actually going to run a little bit so we don't waste so much time. I'm fat, so I'll be out of breath, so forgive me for breathing really heavily. But if I go up this entire stadium, which in the past I would have started having issues with service or radio signal. And so this is the Microsoft Theater at LA Live. So I'm outside the theater and I have 4 bars. I have a feeling if I go even outside the theater or go up escalators or just exit the building, I still have 2 bars. Yeah. And I'm outside. I'm outside the theater.
Yeah, and also
so this is this is for me really important. Like Carl said, most situations you're not that far. But in my situation, I know I can't put focus pullers right where they are. They need to be at the top of the house. So for me, that's a great use case scenario.
And did you have any issues so far about disconnecting, or do you have a stable connection? So how stable is the connection?
The connection I haven't lost yet. It's completely stable.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And also
I had
the
somebody
latency, it's fast, or is it how? What is your impression about the radio? Is it performance-wise?
It's having a pretty good performance issue. I mean, a pretty good performance check. I asked somebody to check for latency yesterday when I had a chance, and I didn't have much of an issue with latency or stuttering or any of that sort of problem. But I do also know that this is not the best case use for this radio. This radio is built really more for line of sight out in the field, where you can really maximize the use of this radio. So, I mean, I think my next test would be to use the orange radios in this sort of dense RF environment when all of the lights are on and all of the mics are on and all of the singers' bell packs are on and everybody's just on really a lot of RF. That would be a good time for me to test the 24 radios. But so far, I mean, I'm having no issues with this. So, I mean, to be honest, in the past, I would probably have been afraid to use my WCU4 in a situation like this because, it's a 3-hour show and you can't be down for even 1 second. If you're on a film set, most often you lose something, you're like, okay, I have a problem, reset, check it, da-da-da. I can't stop a live show. I can't be like, hey, Dolly Parton, can you stop for 1 second? I need to redo this. Or, hey, Eurythmics, that last bit was totally soft. Can you guys redo that song again? Because I didn't have radio connection. So it's difficult. The way I say this is working on a multicam live show, it's 12 hours of sitting around doing nothing. And then it's 2 hours of pure terror and stress because nothing can go wrong in those 2 hours. Not one of my 26 cameras can go down or fail in those 2 hours. So I need everything to be perfect. And I think now I'm more comfortable introducing my WQ4 or my Hi-Fis into that scenario because I know that the connection is a much stronger connection. So that gives me a lot of confidence in pushing this product out there.
Yeah. By the way, so the 900 megahertz is also frequency hopping. So I think it's actually perfect for this environment because most of the lighting equipment will also run on 2.4 gigahertz. So you will have less interference and should be very good if you're using the 900 in this environment. But it's very good.
So that's what I'm very excited to see that I'm having like really no loss as signal. I tried just my regular standard white radio, which is the EMIP that's issued with the camera or the handset. And when I came out here, I was down to about 1 bar, and that's without all the RF being turned on, without still doing setups. So I suspect on show day I would not get very far before starting to get either stuttering or loss. So with the 900, I'm feeling a lot more confident that on this show, I would have absolutely no issues dropping out. And then I also know that you could theoretically, and Tobias, correct me if I'm wrong, theoretically, you could do a 33-meter L-bus cable, correct?
So 50 feet is the longest L-bus cable at the moment, yeah.
Okay. So I mean, with this radio system as it is right now, I'm pretty confident that I should have a great show without having to interrupt anybody on stage from their performance.
Yeah, it's amazing. Can you tell me what was the longest distance you ever needed in your career? So what was the longest range that you ever needed? Can you tell me this?
Probably. Well, one case would definitely have been one end of a American football stadium to the other. So I believe that's 350, 400 yards. Chase, I didn't grow up here, so you know what football stadium length is.
Sounds right.
I think
to me,
it's like 400
like
yards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 400 yards from edge to edge of the stadium, which is fine because all the wiring was done via hardwire for the video, so losing video was not the issue, but definitely losing video signal when the Steadicam operator is running out on the field and you have to stay where you are, that becomes kind of a little bit of an issue. Or if they're running Furios or Skycams or anything that cannot have a hard line tethered to it, and you're sort of stuck where you are, but the camera goes 400 or 500 yards away from you. So that's one. And the other scenario is definitely, I do a lot of car commercials, and recently, for some reason or other, it's becoming where they only want to put a director in the car and not have an AC or an AC travel in a van. Or, for example, if we're on a racetrack, they're like, okay, why can't you just sit here? Because we have video signal with some of our new, there's a couple of new video systems out that we're testing that actually will work for 2-3 miles. And so they're like, we can't have you come because it's a race car and we can only have 2 people in it. There's literally no space to put a third person. And so, having to watch this race car go around a mile and a half track, and they have video signal, and then it's like, okay, I have no, this is before I had the 900 radio in my hand. So at some point, they're like, okay, I lost signal. So then the DP just has to pull focus by himself, which is kind of hard when you're experiencing 3-4 G-force and being thrown around that car.
Yeah. And how about your car?
We have 2 questions. Sorry to interrupt. 2 questions in the chat. One was from a few minutes ago, so we might have to have Lauren specify it. The question was, what's the data rate for this unit? I'm not sure what the unit this refers to. Maybe you can tell us in the chat. And in the meantime, I'll ask the other question from Ronnie. He's giving a use case, RIA1 as a range extender on set combined with the OCU1 for iris control. Is there a limitation regarding lens metadata, for example, with Cooke or Hawk lenses?
So basically, if you use Cooke lens and you have a /I lens, our ARRI cameras is with /I, and all the metadata transmitted with the RIA to the OCU1. And if you even use any lens, as long as you have your LDA table programmed, either to the RIA1 or to the camera, you get all the lens data transmitted to the OCU1. So there should be no issue. I can show you, for example, here on our setup, we have the OCU1 here connected with the orange radio, and you get the iris metadata from our. So we have an ARRI smart lens. So we have LDS lens here, and you get all the metadata directly to the OCU1. It would work completely similar if you're having any lens and work with LDA files. So no worries. You get the metadata through the RIA1 to your OCU1 at a DIT station for iris control. I hope this answers the questions.
Yeah, if not, raise your hand or send another question.
Or unmute your microphone if you want to talk to us. It's allowed. Is there another question?
So Lauren means the radio module, but I'm not sure if that helps. Which radio module exactly? Maybe you can unmute yourself. That will be a help.
So it's about data rate. So I don't know, Leonhard, do you know, maybe means the bandwidth or the bit rate, baud rate of our modules?
Yes, it's measured in kilobits per second. It's very short and small. bandwidth. It's in when you compare to Wi-Fi measured in megabits per second. So we try to make small packages that goes over the air. And so depending on the network structure of the radios, but we would say kilobits per second. It's the right answer for all systems that we use for lens control. It's much less than a video-based system, for example.
Yeah, so we really designed our protocols for lens data, for camera control, but not for
small bandwidth and a lot of redundancy built in the protocols to have the best possible resistance against disturbance.
Yeah. And Maximilian raised his hand.
Yeah.
Maximilian, if you want to unmute.
Hello, guys. Thank you so much for the presentation. On last year's Chaos show, I asked Christina about the reliability of the system in terms of how many units are on set. Back then, I was on a show on Disney, and we had this. The lead AC decided to go Preston because he could connect 8 cameras on that system and have no interference at Disney with a bunch of people. At that point, at the moment in time, the system was still on beta. It was still being tested, and there were not more than 3 units tested at a time. What has been your experience so far with either of the modules when you need more than 4 cameras at a time?
Yeah. I think it's a perfect question also for Ambar, because you're working like with sets with 25 and even more cameras. So what is your experience with multiple? So what is the limits that you experience with the white radio? And unfortunately, you couldn't have the orange radio for testing yet, because the orange radio with frequency hopping, you could even add more units to the system. So I have to admit that I did not test yet the performance, if you could do 20 cameras parallel or not. We can test this, and I can give you a number, Maximilian. But Amber, what is your experience with parallel connection?
Again, I have not had more than 12 RE units on a job because we were limited to 13 channels at that point, because I did not have orange radios or 100 handsets to test how many I can actually run out. But I have run 12 handsets simultaneously with no issues on a set before.
And that's with the orange model.
99,
that's with the EMIP module.
Orange radios and 99 handsets. Yeah.
Awesome.
Can you guys send me 99 orange radios and 99 Rias and all this right away?
Yeah, so we can for sure send you orange radios, Amber. Not 100 Rias. And so, Amber, your connection is very bad now. But so Amber was testing with the EMIP radio, with the white radio, where you could connect up to 12 to 13 cameras. So Maximilian, your experience was not, you couldn't connect that many cameras with the EMIP.
No, my test has not been with, my test was with our standard radios. I have not been able to do a test with either the orange or the gray radios and multiple hand units, because where there's limited supply of those units right now. So my test, when I've used 12 hand units, or 12 cameras and hand units in conjunction, it's been with our standard EMIP radio.
Yeah.
The limit for white radio should be at 40 million, actually.
Georg? So Georg is our colleague actually from Germany.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I didn't have 14, I just had 12. So my max that I've done is 12. I know we can go up to 2 more, because I think it's 0 and 14 has 13 standards as well.
I'd say 12 is very, that's what I've heard from other customers too. I don't know if I've had anyone test more than
12 cameras. I know we can go to 14, but between anybody else on 2.4 gigahertz, even maximizing to 14 is difficult sometimes with everything else, for sure. But that's great to hear that 12 worked out great.
And I also should point out that that 12 was our cameras and RE cameras, and there were other cameras that had Preston units on them, and of course also all the Teradek and all the Vaxis and all that stuff was still playing. So it was a bunch of other stuff happening.
The point is, Preston is doubling their channels, so they're reusing frequencies. But yeah, in theory, while you could connect 14 units over white radio, if there's a single Wi-Fi signal, you will run into at least 2 collisions. So 12 to me seems to be a pretty safe number. At 14 units and a Wi-Fi signal, you will run into collisions.
Yeah. Good points. Thank you, Georg. Good. So we were discussing in the past about range. So Carl, just for curiosity, what was the longest distance you ever needed in your career so far?
The longest distance I needed was about 30 feet, maybe. I'm doing mostly on set, so scenic production. So there was one situation on Homeland. We had a car stunt, and there was a camera rig to a car, and we were very far away. I mean, I wasn't able to see the car anymore, but at this time there were no other possibilities with other radio modules, so I used a Wi-Fi booster, connected it to the camera, and did a little workaround, Wi-Fi booster that is used for drones and stuff like that. It was just to start and stop the camera, not for doing focus. It was a fixed focus, just to start and stop the camera on a stunt car. But usually, I mean, 30 feet, not that should,
Yeah.
Not
makes you curious. Also from the audience, if anyone has an example, for example, where you had a set where you required like a mile of range or even more, please raise your hand if you can share this experience with us. It would be really interesting. So Maximilian again, happy.
Sorry, guys, I just have a couple more questions. I don't have experience on a mile radius scenario, but I just came from the C-Motion presentation that we previously have, and the DAT did have that scenario where he needed to run to, he had 2 kilometers, I believe he mentioned, but at that point he was using a foam assistant to extend the radio. So it's adding more things to the mixture. With the EMIB 900, you get quite far without adding more to the system. In terms of the L-Cube, I keep hearing that there's going to be a firmware update that's going to increase the serial protocol. Any time frame on what that might end up happening? On another note, so potentially the Rio 1 could works as well as an L-Cube, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah. So the Rio 1 has the serial port like the L-Cube, and it already features the high-speed protocol from Focusbug, the Focusbug license support. So it's really the latest generation of serial port implemented in the Rio 1. We are working on implementing all these features also in the L-Cube 1 at the moment. So we are working also on additional software updates. I can't give you exact timing, but as I mentioned at the beginning, very realistically, it will be early next year. So Q1 next year is very realistic.
Thank you. And in terms of camera control for the Sony Venice and the new generation Reds, for example, I know that Sony is not playing nice with anybody, and every time that you enter RCP mode, is the only way that you can control anything beyond your NDs and something like that. Is there in the future, from the communications you guys have with the guys, the ability to control white balance or some of the other features that are useful to control remotely?
So, I mean, we are discussing with Sony about their protocols and implementations. I'm not aware that there is any idea to changing the current way the RCP mode works. But also this question, I can't really answer. This must be raised towards Sony. But of course, we are talking to Sony and trying to improve the camera control functionality, also the lens metadata towards Sony. So we're working with them and trying to improve the overall system performance with Hi5, ECS, and Sony cameras.
Thank you so
Very
much.
important information for all of you. So with the Rear One and also with the latest C-Force Mini RF update, there's actually the opportunity with the cam port on the rear or on the C-Force Mini RF to an ENG 12-pin Hirose pin on the mount of the Sony Venice. You can send the lens metadata into the Sony Venice. So now with the Rear One and with the C-Force Mini RF, you can send the metadata from cam to ENG port 12-pin Hirose to a Sony Venice. So this is a new update, or this is a new feature that was implemented in the latest updates, C-Force Mini RF and Rear One. I think it's quite important if you are working with a Sony Venice.
Awesome, thank you. And one last thing that it has nothing to do with the radio frequencies, but maybe you guys can pass along the message for the folks at ARRI. The new Lexa 35 has moved the UDM and the focus distance to the center of the UI. And they have this little handy trick now that once they match, they go green or they go red. If you can pass along the information to have the ability to move that back to the original place, that would be amazing, because I'm going to have directors yelling at me that they want to get that out of their center frame. I mentioned that to some representatives here on Florida, but just trying to get that across so it comes in a future system update. Thank you.
Yeah, so we noted it down. we discussed with the camera. Georg, I think you want to say something. Yeah, sure.
Thanks for that remark. On the Lexa 35, we have two independently configurable SDA outputs. So the reasoning behind it was that you can pass a clean SDI signal onto the director. There are currently no plans to move that focus overlay. We are thinking about changing the color, however, but any of those changes will arrive late next year.
I understand that you're talking about ideal scenarios with full-on cruise. My main job ends up being meet commercials, music videos, or high-end commercials where the pace is different. And trust me, I use that a lot to keep me sharp. So having the director ask me to please take that off, sure, I can take it off, but it's going to make my life way difficult.
Well, we were thinking that since you do have a readout on your WCO4 or Hi5, that might be sufficient, but we will definitely take that remark into consideration. But again, the first change you can expect will be late next year.
As soon as at some point comes, it's much appreciated. Me having to look at the readout on the hand unit makes me take my eyes off of the screen. That split second when you're pulling on a 1.5 on an actor coming to you from 10 feet to 4 feet, you're done.
Got it. Duly noted. We will think about it. Maybe you can shoot me an email at some point and I'll get back to you.
Thank you, sir. Much kind.
Thank you very much.
Good. We also have a question from Raphael. Sorry, my voice is getting worse.
All right, I'll take over. I wanted to, we've been talking a lot about what's happening right now, and I just idea I heard at a rental recently. We were talking about the new radio modules and how that works with the newer and the older cameras. And my main question is, like, what is the far future, maybe in 2-3 years for the radio modules, because I think a great addition would be, for example, if we could have it integrated in more devices. So for example, I own a Hi-5 and I have a CForce Mini RF because it gives me great flexibility. You know, I don't want to own like 10 motors. So I have just this one, and if we need additional motors, we just rent them. But this one motor gives me great flexibility with multiple cameras, multiple systems. But the unfortunate thing is that I can't use different radio modules with just that motor. I would need to buy an Rio 1 and also the new radio models, which is, you know, almost like 3 times the price of a CForce Mini RF. So my question is like, on one hand, is there plans to do a CForce RF motor with just a slot for the radio modules? And also, are there plans to have slots for the radio modules on the cameras in the future, so we don't have to put the RIA one on it and instead just plug in the respective radio module that we want to use?
Yeah.
And thanks a lot. I'm a big fan of the Hi-5.
So thanks, Raphael. It's very good points. Of course, I cannot disclose our roadmap and details, but of course, all the points you mentioned, they make sense to us, and we are thinking also in this direction. But I can't give you exact answers about which products we will launch and not which time. But of course, with the radio modules, we want to set the standard in the industry with in regard to radio performance. And of course, we want to bring this feature also in additional products in the future.
Yeah, sure. Of course, it's not easy to announce anything like a few years ahead, but yeah, would be greatly appreciated to have a more versatile system there, and maybe this could be the start of like a bigger thing.
Yeah, really, really happy
Thanks.
for your feedback. Thank you, thank you. So I see that Ari Gast has raised his hand. I don't know who this is.
Hi, might be me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just give me a second. Just let me undo that. Hello. Okay. It's just that I couldn't connect properly with my login on Teams, so I had to create like a guest and stuff to be able to do it. Question, because I have heard about different things and I arrived very late because I couldn't connect. But one question that I always have is just like, I have two handset system. I have the W4, looking forward for the Hi-5. But I also have the Teradek RT. And one of the reasons I got it from the very beginning was the functionality of transfer all the marks into the monitor with a small HD. I wonder if that is something that can be done with the Hi-5 through the port of the on the back of the handset, to be able to transfer with a small HD, which I guess is very open to probably provide that as an overlay on the monitor.
Yeah. So monitor overlays is something that we're investigating very carefully. We're looking into several options. Of course, Small HD is one of the main players in regard to monitors, and it is a very interesting idea. And yes, so we are working, and we see the necessity to have a monitor overlay with the Hi-5 system also in future. It's also something that we have on our roadmap, but I also can't give exact details. But definitely we see that it's necessary that an overlay will be possible in the near future.
Amazing. Yeah, I mention it also because the new monitors they are releasing now is like literally most of them are having just a camera remote control. So it's also could be something that can go through there.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you for the answer.
Good. Maximilian, you still have your hand up. Do you have an additional question?
No, sorry, I forgot to turn it down. Thank you for being a trooper, Tobias. You must be dying with your voice. Thanks.
Yeah. So maybe just as a last question. Time is already over, but if you're interested, I'm interested because I learned from Leonhard that it's so important on a film set that actually the more you know about the RF environment of a film set, the better you can tune your channels, the better you can select which kind of radio module that you use, Also, what channels you use, if you know what, for example, Wi-Fi is used on a film set, or what frequencies the lights are using. So I don't know, Carl, or to anyone in the audience, but I just message first to you, Carl. How much information do you usually have on a film set about the RF environment? How important is this to you? Do you have technicians on a set taking care about telling you which channel to use, or what is your experience, and what would be actually your dream?
Actually, usually there's no technician on set handling frequencies or stuff like that. Sometimes I use an RF scanner on a Cine RT to find a better channel for a handset to base connection. Today we had major problems with the Teradek system. The video operator was blocking and changing channels all the time because some device from the electricians department was interferencing with the Teradek. Yeah, I had no problem at all with the 2400. So only the Teradek had a problem, and he figured it out. But yeah, there's no, it's uncontrollable, all these signals on the sets I work.
So if I could just jump in on that, because sure. I'm working on a lot of multicam things with a lot of RF distribution. So, for example, when we're working the NFL show, or even the big stadium show like Lady Gaga or Elton John at Dodger Stadium, where everybody's on RF, all the lights are on RF, all the cameras are on RF, your multi-dynes, all the videos on RF. For those jobs, we have a special technician come out who has some very high-end RF sniffers, and they will physically assign each department a certain block of RF that we have to work within. We also have to oftentimes integrate with, for example, the NFL stadium has their own different setup that's different from ours, and we cannot step on or overlap on their RF channels because they've been doing this for 10, 15 years, and they don't want to rechange any of their stuff. So their RF tech manager and our RF tech manager will have a meeting and decide who can get what channels, what bands, and then from there, each department is told, okay, you can be between this and this, and we have to specifically assign our equipment amongst those channels. So for me, yes, sometimes I do have access to somebody who really knows what they're doing with RF and makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, there's a very good comment from Lauren Mies. I don't know if you want to discuss with us. So it's not that you are as a DIT, you actually scan the set and provide frequencies to the users. Do you use some kind of an RF Explorer, or what equipment do you use? And maybe you can explain to us how you actually usually do that.
Sorry, for me? Is that question for me?
No, we have Lauren Mies. If you want, but also you don't need to. If you
no, I thought that was somebody else. Yeah.
But it's very interesting to read that people are already using these sniffers, and I think it's a very good. And I really would tell to everyone, if you can, take some even YouTube courses about radio frequencies. Maybe see if you can do some training about radio frequencies, and get used to the mindset about distributing radio channels, and think about, you don't see the Wi-Fi and you don't see the RF signals, but they're everywhere. It's like a fully dense RF environment that we are in, and sometimes even in a line of sight, you have so much interference that you lose your signal. So the more you know and the more you train, the better is also your radio performance on set. The less problems you have with controlling your lenses, the better you have camera control, the further distances you can get, the more you know, the better. It's just to really motivate you. Take some online courses or even contact us if you need more information. We are very happy to share. I don't know, my voice is really getting worse. So if there is additional question, I'm more than happy to answer them. I don't know if even Carl, Amber, if you have anything else to mention. Otherwise, I'm really happy. This is an awesome session. I'm really glad that we had this opportunity to discuss with you. On the 11th of November, we're having an additional session. Really just a discussion point about high-five experience and experience as a focus puller AC with ARRI systems. We have very nice people on stage. Everybody's welcome. Please make sure that you also join this session.
I think we have one more question from Raphael.
Yeah, sure.
I think one more.
Please.
Hi, it's me again. It's less of a question than just a little bit of feedback on the monitor overlay thing. I think that's one of the features that's most important in this environment right now, because I shot the show last winter. It was 12 weeks of shooting like a TV series, and I actually paid attention over the shoot, and there was literally no rehearsal over the entire show. So the thing is that, I mean, I don't know how it is for you Americans and Germans, and it's a little bit of a bigger industry there. But for me in Switzerland, this trend of having less rehearsals, being quicker on set, and like needing to just nail it on the first take, it has become very important. And for me right now, it's mostly, I use a TV Logic monitor, so it's probably, this feature is never going to arrive on TV Logic, I'm pretty sure. But still, if there would be a monitor overlay feature over the serial out or in some way, it would be greatly appreciated that because just without rehearsals, it's very important that we can just get on the first take, or like at least the second take, and just right now I just almost exclusively go by feel, and it works most of the time, but it still can be a very hard environment to just nail it every time. And I think the monitor overlays would, especially with the Cine RT or like the Moon Smart Focus in the future, it would be a great feature to have, just to not have to take the eyes off the monitor, because as someone said before, if once you take your eyes off, it's like this half a second delay for your eyes to like register the information you're seeing on your hand unit, and it's already too late. It's if you don't miss it, if you miss it, you know that you missed it, but that's not useful information. You need to know before.
Yeah, it's too late then.
Hey, Raphael,
The traditional
I just
way
wanna-
of polling has changed.
Raphael, I just want you to know that you're not alone. None of us are getting rehearsals or the luxury of getting marks or any of that nonsense anymore. Everybody it's a free for all. So you're in good company.
Yeah, thank you.
No, say-
It's at least good to know that everybody is in the same same problems.
100%. My customers say the same thing, and they would really like to see something like that implemented in our system, having the marks on an on-screen display. Definitely not alone in that. Across the Western US, as Ambar can attest to, people really are enjoying that feature on that system. So yeah, hopefully we can have something for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So all thanks to you. It was really a great session. Special thanks to Chase, Leonhard, Amber, and Carl. Thanks for being with us here today, and thanks for all the questions and your participation. Really look forward to seeing you soon, and hopefully next time with my full power of my voice. It was a pleasure. Have a nice evening and a nice day wherever you are. See you.
Yep. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.